Sam is the chromatic brawler for season 14, and he is the second member of the Gold Arm gang along with Belle, and he is the brawn of the gang. His full name is actually Sam Bronson, which makes him the first brawler in the game to have a public first and last name. He also has a vendetta against all robots for some reason. Now, a few of his voice lines refer to kids, so I'm hoping that we'll get to see more of the Bronson family in the future.
In your face! Alright, jabbers, let's do it! You were outclassed.
Also, all of his voice lines and pins at the end of this video. Sam is the first brawler in the game with a trait that allows him to begin each match with a fully charged super. Honestly, I think this actually makes him a very unique close range brawler without making him kind of broken, and I wanted to kind of point this trait out before anything else. Sam's main attack is heavy haymakers. Each ammo fires 2 punches, each in a slightly different direction in front of him. They deal a lot of damage, but only if his knuckle busters are on, and they deal half that amount of damage if they're off. While his knuckle busters are on, his attack range has a little more width to it, but his reload speed is actually really slow. Now, his attacks can hit multiple enemies whether his knuckle busters are on or not. His 2 different attack styles do have some pros and cons to each of them, but generally his knuckle busters is better to have on. Sam's super is knuckle busters. When he activates his super, he fires his knuckle busters forward, and they deal 1 burst of damage to every target in their path. He also gets a short burst of speed after firing them. Now, once they have launched, they sit on the ground until Sam either picks them up by touching them or he pulls them back with his super. If Sam charges his super without his knuckle busters equipped, he can then use it to summon them back to himself no matter how far away they are. As they travel back to him, they deal half their damage to every target they hit on the way, and they also go through all obstacles without breaking anything. And just in case you're curious, it takes about 7 seconds for a super to travel from one corner of the showdown map to the opposite corner. Sam's first gadget is Magnetic Field. This gadget can only be activated if Sam's knuckle busters are off of him and sitting on the ground. Once he activates it, all enemies within a small radius around the knuckle busters will be pulled towards them, kind of similar to Jackie's or Tara's super. It is only a pulling effect, so they won't be knocked back if they're pulled into the center, and there's not any sort of damage that is included with this either. Sam's second gadget is Pulse Repellent. When this gadget is activated, Sam's next super that he throws out will send out an electric pulse that knocks enemies back. Now, the pulse shoots out once the knuckle busters actually land, so enemies that are hit along the way while it's traveling to it will not be knocked back. You can only use this gadget if Sam has his knuckle busters on, which means that you can't use it even if you're using his super to bring them back to you. Sam's first star power is Hearty Recovery. This star power makes it so that every time Sam retrieves his knuckle busters, he recovers 30% of his missing health. So the more that he's been damaged, the more health that he'll recover. And once again, he heals every time he picks up his knuckle busters, whether he uses his super to pull them back to him or he just grabs it to himself. So yes, he can go right next to a wall and use his super over and over again to give him a nice boost to his HP. This does require the situation to be pretty much perfect, but if you can make it work out, this star power seems really strong. Sam's second star power is Remote Recharge. While Sam's knuckle busters are on the ground, this star power creates a small area around them that will slowly charge Sam's super while enemies are inside it. It basically works exactly like Buzz's trait, so the more enemies that are inside the area, the faster Sam's super will charge. However, it's a much smaller area than Buzz's is. Now that we know how he works, it is time to compare him to every single brawler in the game in the Brawl Stars Olympics events. First up is the auto aim test. Sam's main attack just barely misses Nita from 3 tiles away because of how his attack is fired. Since his projectiles travel diagonally from the direction that he's facing, he's only able to land his second punch on Nita. Sam hits from 2 tiles away and deals 1,200 damage, which puts him in 55th place out of the 59 brawlers in the game, and you can check out my recent auto aim Olympics after this video to see how the other brawlers do. Next is the attack range test, and Sam's attack is a little wider with his knuckle busters on, but they don't increase the length of his range at all. His attack is only 3 tiles long, and that actually ties him with Buzz for 55th place. For the area test, Sam's main attack is only able to break 11 skulls since his projectiles overlap a little bit. Now, strangely enough, he actually fires his super straight up instead of where I aimed for some reason, so I added the 2 skulls that should have been broken, and Sam breaks 29 skulls in total, and that puts him in 46th place. Next is the super range test, and as we've seen, Sam can use his super to bring his knuckle busters back to him from anywhere on the map, but I think it makes more sense for us to rank him based on how far forward he can actually shoot his super rather than placing it and then running away. Sam's super stretches 9 tiles long, which ties him with Amber and Otis for 37th place. But I wouldn't blame you if you counted him as having a longer super range than even Nani. For the 1 second DPS test, Sam is barely too slow to hit the boss with 4 projectiles before his second is up. But since supers can interrupt main attacks at any time, he uses his super after landing his 3rd projectile, which instantly adds some heavy damage right before the clock resets. Sam's able to deal 5,700 damage, and that puts him in 33rd place for this test. From this point on, Sam beats more than half of the brawlers in the game in each of the following tests. For the assassin test, Sam starts by unloading all 3 of his ammo as fast as he can and then uses his super right after he lands his 6th punch. He doesn't have enough time to retrieve the knuckle busters because it only lasts for 3 seconds, but he reloads so fast that he's able to land 1 more punch on the boss before his 3 seconds are up. Sam deals 9,900 damage, which puts him in 29th place for the assassin test. Now, I don't usually let brawlers start their supers charged in the boss test, but obviously I had to make an exception for Sam. He deals his damage faster by unloading all of his shots with his knuckle busters on and then using his super once he has to reload. Once they're off, his reload speed is twice as fast, and as soon as his ammo is full again, he picks up his super again and repeats the process. Sam defeats the boss in 51.2 seconds and gets 29th place out of the 59 brawlers in the game. Now, Sam's super deals twice as much damage being launched forward as it does while being pulled back. Now, there's no limit to how many targets his super can hit, but in the super damage test, he can only deal 1, so that's 2,100 damage, and he ties with Ash for 27th place. For the 3 attack kill test, Sam is able to deal 7,200 damage with only 3 ammo as long as all of his projectiles hit. That's enough damage to take out 52 of the 60 brawlers in the game, including 8-Bit and Pam. That means that he ties with Dynamite for 23rd place. Next is the splash test, and Sam doesn't have the range to hit every box, and he can use his super until his last attack, or else the rest of his attacks would actually deal half the damage. He can only break a few boxes open at first, but most of the boxes have at least been damaged by the time he collects some power cubes, so he's able to take out the rest of them with a couple attacks and 1 final super. It takes him 9 seconds to complete the splash test, and he gets 23rd place. For the swarm test, Sam uses his super to quickly take out 2 rows of bots with only 1 hit each. He brings his super back as soon as it hits the ground and quickly takes out another row of 2 bots. Sam defeats the swarm in 3.6 seconds and ties with Amber for 20th place. Now, the brawlers are only allowed to use their super once in the survival test. Sam leaves his super on the ground until he's 1 hit away from being defeated so that he can then heal as much as possible thanks to his hardy recovery star power. He gains 2,250 health, which buys him a few extra seconds. Now, if he was allowed to use more than 1 super, he could have kept throwing and retrieving it over and over again and survived forever, but he can't do that, so he survives for 27.8 seconds and gets 17th place. Next is the race test, and he gets a temporary speed boost after launching his super, so he launches them directly in front of him so that he speeds up, quickly picks up his super, and gets another burst of speed. He's able to launch his super 4 times before crossing the finish line, which gives him a speed boost the majority of the whole test. On top of that, Sam also has a fast movement speed like Frank and Bull, which gives him another advantage. Sam finishes in 9.4 seconds and ties with Colette and Bull for 15th place. Next is the box test, and similar to the splash test, Sam keeps his knuckle busters on until the very end so he can deal more damage. But unlike the splash test, he's able to hit every box in each cluster with all of his projectiles. Sam saves his super for the very last second and breaks all of them up in 30.8 seconds, which puts him in 11th place, suggesting he's going to be very good at ramping up in Showdown. Now, if Sam has his knuckle busters on, he completes the reload test in 22.1 seconds, which is similar to Griff and Brock. That's kind of a slow reload speed. But without his knuckle busters, he takes off. Sam's able to reload 10 shots in 12 seconds, which puts him in 7th place overall. And for reference, that's just a tiny bit slower than B's reload speed, meaning that he has an insane reload speed. But now it is time for Sam's best test, and then we'll talk about how strong I think he's going to be in every mode. And his best test is the Supercharged Test. If we ignore the fact that Sam starts the match with his Supercharged and the fact that he can charge up his super instantly by picking up his knuckle buster, Sam would normally get 46th place. It takes him 10 hits to recharge his super, which takes 3.4 seconds. However, the fact that he can instantly charge his super without any other abilities means that he actually gets 1st place on the Supercharged Test because it happens instantly. So how strong do I think he's going to be? Sam does not have the range to be a gem carrier, and he doesn't have any abilities that can help him quickly get safe out of a tight spot if he does have the gems. However, he looks like he's going to be a great aggro brawler. Really push people back, give them a hard time if he can get them toward the enemy spawn and get hidden safely behind a wall. His super also looks like it's a great move for finishing off enemy gem carriers or even using his pulse repellent gadget to knock them closer to your teammates. I'm going to be a little bit generous and give him A tier for gem grab, but we'll have to see how he actually does. Now next is Brawl Ball, and the trait that allows Sam to begin the match with a charged super it's definitely a good super in Brawl Ball, because that means you instantly have a super shot ready to go. If like you can take out one enemy, sometimes that's all you need. However, super shots are also very risky to take with Sam, because if you don't score, then Sam keeps his knuckle busters on, but his super gets depleted. At that point, the only way to charge it back up is by getting hits with his knuckle busters on, and that's gonna be pretty difficult since he just kind of has a short range, and he also has a very slow reload speed at that time. That being said, he's very strong close range and he has a lot of health. Plus, he's got a really good healing star power. So I'm gonna be generous once again, put him in A tier for Brawl Ball. Now, after watching him in the boss test, Sam actually has pretty good DPS as long as he's close to a wall and he can throw his super onto it. So for Heist, both his main attack and his super go through targets, which is actually really nice because if you're trying to deal damage to a safe and there's enemies there, like that's gonna work out very nicely for him. His slow reload speed and his short attack range are a few things that kind of hold him back in this game mode, but if you can work around those, he should be decent for the mode. Maybe not the most competitive, but playable, which is why I'm putting him in the B tier. But for bounty, he's got to go in the C tier. Sam he's gonna have problems in this. He's gonna struggle staying alive, but I think he's really gonna struggle to get kills. His super is his only attack that actually has decent range, and it's gonna be really difficult for him to charge his super after he's launched it forward because of how many long range brawlers are played in this mode, and typically short range brawlers like him just kind of get picked on in bounty. And that's exactly why I think he deserves C tier for bounty. Now for hot zone, that's the perfect game mode for Sam, okay? His super deals damage to multiple enemies, he has a wide main attack, and his healing star power and tanky HP, that means it's going to be very difficult to take Sam out in hot zone, okay? Now I know there are a few hot zone maps with lots of open spaces where he is going to struggle, but most hot zone maps have plenty of walls for him to work around, and on top of that, both of his gadgets actually make his super great for fighting in the middle of the zone. I'm gonna put him all the way up into the S tier for hot zone, even though there's a chance he'll probably be A tier in all reality. I'm being generous here, okay? For knockout, it's another game mode that long range brawlers are gonna be kind of better in. But Sam's survivability is still really good, and honestly, there's a lot of competitive knockout matches that end up with both teams kind of like really close range in the, because they're surrounded by the smoke. If Sam can survive until it becomes a close range fight, he's gonna be able to clean up the enemy team very quickly because he's pretty tanky and he does a lot of damage. I'll put him in the B tier for knockout because of that. Then next is solo showdown. Sometimes it's hard to sneak up on enemies in solo showdown with close range brawlers, but Sam did really well in the box test, and I think he's gonna be really good at kind of ramping up in showdown, especially by getting a quick start. If you can get a quick couple of boxes and then run to the middle where there's a ton of boxes, he can take them all out with his quick punches. That could make a big difference. I also think it's going to be pretty easy for him to pick up his knuckle busters in solo showdown in comparison to some other game modes where he's gonna kind of have to like fight for map control. So I'm gonna give him B tier for solo showdown. There is a chance though he could be A tier for solo showdown. After all, pretty much every brawler can be played in solo showdown if you're good enough or if you use the right strategies. Duo showdown. Brawlers won't be able to hide behind their teammates to avoid Sam's attacks, which means that he's already better for duo showdown. It's gonna make it a lot easier for him to pick up his super if he has his teammate to kind of help protect him as well, and both of his gadgets are more effective in this mode than solo showdown, and so that's why I'm gonna be generous. Once again, bump him up into the A tier for duo showdown. Overall, I think Sam isn't gonna be the weakest, but he's definitely not gonna be the strongest. I think he's gonna be pretty average, but as usual, I've only played him against bots, so it's really hard to tell how good a brawler is until you've actually played him against actual players. So let me know how strong you think he is in the comment section below. Now I'm done with this video, but I'm gonna show you all of his voice lines and pins, so stick around for that. Otherwise, we'll see you in the Gus Olympics, so subscribe for that.
Jab, counter punch, kidney punch, cross, uppercut, kidney punch. I got knocked out. TKO. Oh, that was a low blow. Throwing in the towel. I'll get you next round. It's all gone Pete Tong. Too many kids. My bell. That was shambolic. I'm on the ropes. Roll with the punches. Saved by the bell. Oh, feeling groggy. Kids got my back. Yeah, right. Youth of today. Nice one. I'll give you that. Oi, Leave it out. You're having a laugh. Bang out of order, mate. Proper naughty. It's a knockout. 3, 2, 1. You're done, mate. Look, kids. That's how it's done. You're brown bread. Time for bed. Sleepy time. You were outclassed. Undefeated brawler. I beat you all to the punch. This one's for Belle. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Champion. Time to hit 'em with the old 1-2. Let's go beat up some bods. Time to show the kids how it's done. Put up your jukes. Playtime's over, kids. Time for an argy-bargy. All right, jabbers, let's do it. Sucker punch. Sam's hammer in your face. Get 'em, jabbers. Gloves are off.